The original Devil May Cry is one of the stranger developments in games. It started life as a Resident Evil title, but morphed into a pseudo-fighting game complete with combos and flashy aerial attacks. DMC became more over-the-top and comedic with the years.
You summon and kill. Summon and kill. I fail to see the logic here. The price to pay for power?
But what if they hadn't? Soulstice is dark, dour, and drenched in a grim, medieval atmosphere. Aesthetically, it resembles a less cheery Dark Souls, without even the fleeting glimpse of an onion knight or an incandescent sun to offer moments of warmth and beauty. Playing as Briar, the Ashen Knight, and her spectral sister Lute, you have to enter the ruinous city of Ilden to close the breach and save the world.
Show us what you've got!
Soulstice's story lives in an awkward place, sprinkling moments of melodrama atop a thin, simple plot. We're asked to care about the sisters, but both are drawn from uninteresting archetypes. Characters are bookended by cutscenes that serve to move the characters to new locations, but do very little to flesh them or the world out in the process. The game instead focuses on its grimdark fantasy atmosphere. The overbearing soundscape only lets up during fights, and the desaturated color palette, mainly consisting of blues and greens, makes it hard to read the world at a glance. Whilst animations are stiff and enemies aren't as extravagant as in the likes of Devil May Cry or Bayonetta, the combat in Soulstice is still enjoyable, with rewarding feedback from weapon thwacks or monsters that explode into meat and currency. As you're whacking and dodging as Briar, juggling creatures and trying to remember combos, often a button prompt will appear over enemies, get the timing right and Lute will intervene, repelling an arrow or swatting a weapon back, or freezing an enemy in place depending on the context. It's a wee bit Arkham Asylum, letting you take on multiple enemies simultaneously without having to worry about getting attacked from all sides. But the DMC action stylings of the combat encounters and score screens always remind you what you're really in for. As the game progresses, adds more enemies, more mechanics, and more ways you need to fight, it can sometimes get to be too much, with tutorial tooltips offering little in the way of guidance. However, outside of battle, the game is far simpler. You run down various alleys and collect currency and other items, all from a fixed perspective harkening back to the earlier DMC games. And whilst these camera angles do frame the city in a beautiful way, it can make it difficult to actually, play the game. Especially considering how much platforming is involved during these sections, with no shadow to guide you in this dark, dingy world. More than anything, what Soulstice feels like is a forgotten Xbox 360 action game, a relic from the halcyon days of AA gaming. Games like Dark Sector and Dead to Rights Retribution, games that brought some fresh ideas and were decidedly alright at the time, but maybe a less so over a decade down the line. Soulstice similarly has some good ideas. Lute does much to disturb the sacred formula of DMC-style games, but is similarly rough around the edges, with a yo-yoing camera that constantly undermines the game. For me, the monotonous setting and the level design ultimately drained my enthusiasm, but if you can look past its issues, this is a solid Devil May Cry-like, featuring chunky and challenging combat, and there aren't many of those to go around.